It is in the nature of the Democratic Party to be self-critical because it is always trying to move forward on social policy, which the Republican Party is not. And it is always thinking of social policy from new angles. It is also always trying to move forward on social sensitivities, on issues like racism, on feminism. So if, for example, marriage equality had come up at this debate tonight, and someone pointed out that Barack Obama was once opposed to marriage equality, I would not take that as an attack on Barack Obama. I would take that as an expression of the way thinking in the Democratic Party is constantly moving forward. And so you can look back 2 years, 4 years, and 6 years and say, I think we should do it this way instead of that way, and I now want to do it this way because we did it that way. I mean, Julian Castro at a certain point said something about learning from mistakes that he was part of in the past. And so I think there's an easy overreaction here to the idea that Barack Obama is being attacked. I don't think he felt like he was being attacked. If he was watching this, I think he knows what that is. I do think that they did lose focus once again on Donald Trump, not in their closing statements, which is quite interesting, right? Because the opening statements and the closing statements are the two things they've prepared. They get a minute for each one. And in those things, they never attacked anybody else on the stage. But in the CNN design of game show of I'm going to raise something that this one said 2 years ago and get you to fight with that person about it, they fell into it and they didn't step above it, most of them, most of the time. And that is a format mistake that they really should have thought their way through. And once again, the proof that there is not now and hasn't been for a very, very long time anyone who you would call a leader of the Democratic Party. Because if the Democratic Party had a leader after last night, the 10 people tonight would have all been sat in a room tonight. That's right. And they would have said, remember you're running against Donald Trump, and remember that one of these people, at least one, is going to be on the ticket that you're going to be either on or campaigning for, and don't say anything that makes it difficult for you to campaign for this ticket when you're going to have to campaign for this ticket. And that discipline wasn't there. By the way, I don't think any of them have crossed that line. I think John Delaney can go out and campaign for this ticket. I think they can all still campaign for the ticket or join the ticket. I don't think they're at that spot, but they're veering toward it without that concentration on Donald Trump.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.